to see the teddy bear are here to play. If you don't come play with us.
Welcome to Frightened Female. This is Crystal. Today's viewer story was submitted by Valerie. And guys, make sure when you submit a story to please subscribe so you can know first thing when the video is posted. It's a really spooky one. Be careful when you're on that Craigslist. That's all I gotta say. With that, let's begin. It was the summer before my senior year of high school, and at 17, I had my license and an old used car given to me by a family friend, but I had no job. My mother said that she'd allow me to get a summer job only, but nothing that would interfere with next year's schoolwork. I had done babysitting in the past, and I love kids, seeing as I had 2 younger siblings. But we had since moved midway through the last year, and I wasn't very familiar with anybody that had kids to watch. So I brainstormed and did something that I was always told to be careful of. I went on Craigslist. And sure enough, to my surprise, there were several ads for people in need of a part-time babysitter in my area. The one that caught my eye was closest to my house, and it paid $9 an hour for 2 nights a week, Friday and Saturday, 4 hours each night. So I figured 3 months at $72 a week, that would come to about $864 for the whole summer. Not too bad, I thought. I really wanted to save up for my first apartment once I graduated, and that would at least give me a deposit payment on a new place. Plus, I'd only be working 8 hours a week. I'd still have time for my friends. So I replied to the ad by email, since strangely they didn't want any texts or phone calls, and I got a reply within the hour. "Thanks for your interest," they replied. "Here's the address, and if you could come by the house around 4 p.m. tomorrow, that would be perfect. It's only one child, my son, that you'd be watching, and I'll pay you in cash on every Saturday after the 2 days are complete." Awesome! I said, this works out great. So I texted my boyfriend Jesse to tell him what my plans were. We'd only been dating for a few months at this time. He said, "You'll be working every weekend this summer? What about us spending time together?" I assured him the rest of each week would be clear and that this is going toward a potential apartment after graduation. It was just for the summer. He said fine. My mom seemed okay about it. The house was only a few minutes away from our place, and she knew the neighborhood pretty well. I was happy to have found the ad. So the following day, I left by myself in my car to the address in the email. I wanted to initially go with someone, but my mom was working, and I hesitated on bringing Jesse because I didn't want the parent of this kid to think that I was just going to have my boyfriend over while they were gone. I wasn't worried, though. It was still light outside. I had my cell phone, and the houses were nice and well kept. I pulled up to the address and parked along the curb. I went up the side walkway to the front door, and I knocked. A few moments went by, and then I saw a silhouette approach through the glass. "Hello, Valerie?" she said. I smiled and said, "Yes, that's me." She motioned me in. "Nice to meet you. I'm the mother, Lauren." The lady looked like she had stepped out of a 1950s catalog. Her presence was so sweet and kind. She was even wearing an apron, for heaven's sakes. Well, the house did smell like some kind of pastry was cooking. Hell, she probably did that on purpose so I wouldn't be alarmed or frightened. Make me feel more welcome. So I followed her to the kitchen, and we sat down at the dining table. It wasn't long till I heard the pitter-patter of 2 little feet approaching. The boy was clutched to some action figure toy. He had blondish brown hair, a striped shirt, khaki shorts, and of course, no shoes. "Valerie, this is my son, Brandon. Come here, Brandon," she said. He, like most small children, had that standoffish, shy thing going on as he scooted over to his mother, but still kept his distance. He just turned 5. He'll be starting kindergarten this year. "Oh, wow," I said. "That means you're all grown up," I chuckled. The mother laughed too and grabbed a nearby notepad and pen. "Okay, so I'm going to need you here a few minutes before 6 p.m., both Friday and Saturday for 4 hours each night. The return time will be between 10:30 p.m. She began jotting her notes down. "Make sure he's in bed by 9 p.m. and no later. He usually eats around 6:30 and is allowed a treat at 8 p.m. Tomorrow I will have frozen pizza in the freezer and some ice cream sandwiches for dessert. Don't worry about bathing him. I usually do that in the early afternoons. He's got plenty of toys and movies and games, so feel free to just enjoy yourselves. Here's my cell phone number for emergencies. Valerie, any questions?" I shook my head. "No, sounds good." I didn't want to be rude and ask her where she worked or what she was doing for 4 hours every weekend. None of my business. She said, "Just in case I need the spare key for the front door, it's over in that white dish on the shelf." Everything seemed great. I felt really comfortable, and I looked forward to the new gig. Piece of cake. Well, Friday afternoon came. My boyfriend decided to pick me up and take me to the babysitting house. "Are you sure you're going to be okay by yourself?" he said as we approached the street. "Yeah, Jessie. Just make sure you have your phone with you when I text you to come and pick me up tonight. Then we can go watch a movie or something." He agreed. So we arrived. I kissed him goodbye, and he waited till I got to the front door and then waved. I knocked. Here came that same silhouette approaching. The door unlocked and opened. This wasn't the mother, Lauren. It was a man. I quickly looked back out in the street to see if my boyfriend was still there. He had taken off already. What a dumbass, I thought to myself. "Are you, Valerie?" he asked in a low, humble voice. Yeah. Is Lauren here?" He paused. "I'm her husband, Tom. She's at work. I'm heading to go pick her up as soon as I leave here. Come on in." He continued while bolting the door behind him. "We go out every weekend with a group of our buddies. It's just something we like to do. Our last sitter was moving out of town, so, well, we needed a new one." I peered over to see the boy Brandon in the background. He was coloring on some paper at the coffee table and seemed content and preoccupied in front of the television. If the kid wasn't scared, no need to get worked up myself, but something about this Tom was a bit strange. Really couldn't put my finger on it. He certainly didn't have the presence that his wife had, that's for sure. He was a little heavy-set, with glasses and a balding head. Didn't have much of an expression on his face. He grabbed a few odds and ends and went over to pat Brandon on the head. "Be a good boy for Valerie," he muttered. I saw that the written list of reminders was still set on the kitchen table. "We'll be back around 10 o'clock or so." He headed down the hallway toward the door leading to the garage. "Okay, see you later," I said. He shut the door, and I heard it lock shut from his side. I peered out the front blinds and waited to see his car pull out and take off down the road. I turned to Brandon and said, "So, what you want to do first?" The night pretty much involved the boy introducing me to everything under the sun. Every toy, every book. My throat was almost getting sore from saying, "Uh-huh, really? Cool, that's super neat." Kids are kids, and he really loved his fish tank. They didn't have any other animals except these goldfish that were placed next to the bookshelf. He told me the names of about 4 of them, none of which I remember. We'd cooked our pizza about a half hour late. It was the kid's fault. He was too busy showing me stuff. The parents wouldn't know anyways. So while we were eating at the table, I asked the boy, "Hey, Brandon, where does your mommy work?" There was a silence as he took another bite from the crust. He looked up. "I don't know my mommy." "What? What do you mean? Who was that lady that I talked to yesterday when I came over here? The nice lady? That's your mommy, right?" He just chewed his pizza for a second and shook his head. I asked Daddy who the lady was. Daddy just told me to be quiet. It felt like my blood instantly ran cold. I set my half-eaten pizza down. Okay, now I'm freaking out at this point. I didn't want to scare the kid, so I walked into the living room and pulled out my phone to call my boyfriend. After all, this was just a young kid, and I was a stranger to him. I really had no need to alert the police because technically nothing really happened. I just needed to talk to somebody. So Jesse picked up. I told him about the weird response made by the child. He said he didn't know the Lauren woman that I spoke to yesterday, I explained. My boyfriend said, "Valerie, maybe it was the dad's mistress or something. The kid's like, what, 5 years old? Don't worry, babe." Yeah, maybe Jesse was right. Maybe I was overanalyzing everything. "Just make sure you're ready when I text you to pick me up, okay?" He said he would be there. So I took my phone over to the table, and I decided to program the emergency number that Lauren had given me into my phone, just so I'd have it in my contact list. We finished up our meal. Brandon asked if he could put a movie on, and I told him yes. The kid knew how to use the DVD player like a pro. He only had 2 million movies to choose from. He wanted his pillow to lay on, so I went to get it from his room. The only room, aside from the bathroom, that I went into. I wasn't one to snoop anywhere else. Upon walking down the hall, I noticed a wide array of pictures hanging. The funny thing is that they were all of Brandon. No parents. I saw one picture of him with an elderly woman, which I assumed would be the kid's grandma, but that was it, and I found it odd, but to each their own. I gave Brandon his pillow, and he fell asleep no later than 20 minutes into the movie. So I quietly snuck into the freezer for an ice cream sandwich for myself. The less sugar inside the boy, the better. After a bit, I was able to nudge him and escort him into his room, decorated in checkers and race cars. I tucked him in, and I left the door cracked. His Spider-Man nightlight glowed down the hallway. This wasn't too bad of a job, I thought. Comfy couches and full cable, and then pizza and ice cream too. I could definitely get used to this. So I watched a few sitcom episodes. It was a little past 10 by this time, and I had my cell phone resting by my side, waiting to text Jesse when the parents arrived. The mini blinds were cracked, and not more than 5 minutes after I sat up, I saw the street light up and I heard the garage door begin to open. I stood up and began texting Jesse before they even entered the house. "I'm ready. They're here. Come get me." I asked my boyfriend not to knock on the door because I didn't want to wake the kid up. I'd see if he was waiting outside. It would only take him 3 minutes to get there. He lived pretty close. Jesse texted right back, right as the man Tom unlocked and opened the door into the dimly lit hallway. "On my way right now, Val," my boyfriend replied. I looked over at the dad, and I waited for the mother, Lauren, to follow behind him. He was stumbling a little bit, not terribly bad, and he walked into the living room where I was standing. "Hi," I said. Where's your wife?" He swayed back and forth, staring at me. and slowly headed back down the hall with no response. He walked over to the garage entry door, slammed it, and turned the bolt shut. Why would he lock his wife out of the house? Then, in a mumbling mutter, he said, She's getting the money for you. In her purse, in the car in there, in the garage. My blood once again grew cold, and I had goosebumps all over. I knew in my heart something was seriously wrong, and very frightening as he stumbled back down the hallway slowly toward me, looking very ragged and disheveled. Valerie, right? He said. I looked over to peer out the front blinds. Jesse hadn't gotten there yet. Was the wife Lauren still in the garage getting the money, I thought? She told me in the ad that I wouldn't be paid till each Saturday. Didn't make sense. Why would he lock her in the garage? I reached for my purse and my cell phone that sat on the cushion. The man got closer and closer and came around to my side of the couch. I had nowhere to go, except if I had leapt over the love seat to my right. He got close enough to where I could smell the heavy alcohol on his breath. You can stay with us a little while, can't you, darling? He attempted to reach for my shoulder, but I moved away as he did, and I heard the rumble of my boyfriend's pickup approaching. No thanks, leave me alone, I screamed. And I did just that. I jumped over the sofa toward the entryway. Now the man grew angry and began shouting, Come back here! You want your money, bitch? I started crying as I fiddled with the lock, but I busted through the front door and ran like a bat out of hell to the sidewalk as the lights approached. Problem was, the approaching lights were not my boyfriend's. They were from the neighbor's truck across the street pulling in. I just kept running down the street. Jesse was following shortly behind, and I flailed my arms. He came to a quick stop, and I jumped in and told him, Get us the hell out of there. I was out of breath and choking on my words. He was trying to ask me what had happened, but it took a while for me to compose myself. We went back to his place, and my heart was still beating 1,000,000 miles an hour. Screw the money. I knew something wasn't right from the get-go, but I couldn't have left that poor boy home alone. So once calm, I told my boyfriend everything, and we agreed that the next day we'd go to the police station, fill out a report, or at least explain what had happened. They'd take it from there. I decided to write down the course of events so I wouldn't forget anything when I spoke to the officers. My mother came along this time. She was happy I was safe. The cops said that they would attempt to go over and question this Tom character, but the fact that we didn't respond last night wasn't good either. Where would be the evidence aside from my hearsay? Technically, I wasn't harmed, yes, but I had feared for my safety. The officer said, unfortunately, at this point, there wasn't enough reason for the arrest based on the timing of our reporting. We did, however, attempt to call the supposed number of the child's mother, Lauren, that I had programmed in my cell phone. It was disconnected and no longer in service. Maybe it had been that way for quite some time. Upon researching the Craigslist ad for the same babysitting gig, that, too, had been deleted from the site. Whoever this Lauren gal was a freaky mystery. The child didn't even know who she was, and this strange Tom man, how come the wife hadn't have told me about him before? Let's just say I didn't go back that Saturday. So about 2 weeks went by. My boyfriend and I and 2 of our other friends decided just to cruise by the babysitting house, just to see it. Funny, there was a for sale sign out front on the lawn. I've now put it past me but I'd suggest that everyone use Craigslist with caution. Trust is something that we take way too lightly in this world. Lesson learned. Geez, Valerie, that's a scary one. You know, I was always told with Craigslist, always take someone with you, make sure it's in a public area. But sometimes, you know, you get caught up in maybe making a mistake. Thank goodness you're safe. To any of you that have a true scary story that you would like to submit to me, please read the description box below. Also, like and subscribe to my new YouTube channel. Remember to please be safe, be aware of your surroundings, and remember to always lock your door. Scare you later.